This week on the Art of SBA Lending.
When I have an MBA in a quarter zip with their MBA under their arm, walk into the break room with 15 blue collar employees that built the business that they just bought with one good year of cash flow, it's not my deal.
And then in the panel today, you said you're at 32 million year to date, or like in Q1 or whatever, like basically tracking toward, like if you just annualize that out, it's 120 million.
You know, people are like, how do you grow? By saying no more often and saying it quicker.
You haven't been on any of the episodes lately. Are you quitting the show? In 2020, the banking industry was forced to accelerate into the future, and now there's more innovation than ever before. And many of my colleagues are embracing these tools, and they're winning. But the banks that are slow to adapt, well, frankly, I'm concerned. Here's an example. Bank A uses Lumos and has over 1 billion data points at their fingertips that allow them to, within seconds, access all this data, local economic data, industry insights, even a predicted expected loss. And Bank B, well, their underwriter spends hours Googling it. Which bank do you think is going to be winning 5 years from now? Guys, we can finally make credit decisions using actual data. Let Lumos take your small business lending to the next level with cutting-edge analytics by going to lumosdata.com and scheduling your demo today. It's been 100 episodes since we last had you on.
Yeah, the iconic episode 72. It's been a long time, man, and it's really nice to be able to sit down with you. This conference has been really great. The morning session I thought was really good. Our panel was well.
Yeah, we crushed. Dude, now right at the top, I just gotta let you know, like the reason because people do get to see you now.
Yeah.
You're doing some content. You're doing the BDO show.
Right.
Doing a great job, by the way.
Thanks.
When you show up. But the reason that we had to have you on is, and I think it's going to be something in the thumbnail and something in the title, but it's a variation of the student has become the master, because I remember you messaging us early on when you're getting into SBA. Mm-hmm. And then in the panel today, you said you're at 32 million year to date, or like in Q1 or whatever, like basically tracking toward, like if you just annualize that out, it's 120 million or something like, which is impossible. Like that's crazy.
Right. And
this has been a journey for you for like the last, 5-6 years. Mm-hmm. And so we got to get into that and what you're doing. Cause I feel like you evolve over and over. Right. So it's like I'm actually interviewing a different person today, like since last week, really.
Right. Yeah. I think that I rewatched episode 72, and honestly, I kind of cringed at a couple of things that I said. And
like what?
You know what? I don't know. I'm going to stand on a little bit of business. Base riders are still weak. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But
base riders are weak.
I think part of it when I revisited that episode was when I had said, how there's harder gigs out there and that we're really, really lucky to be doing what we're doing. And of course, it's extremely challenging. The process can be hard. It's difficult. There's a lot of steps. There's a lot of moving parts. There's the variable that we can't control, which is other human beings in the process. The robots haven't taken the jobs yet. Thank God. Right. So we have to manage external relationships and internal relationships, all of those key players, to get across the finish line. So, I think I oversimplified that on the first
it is a little harder, but it's all about, what's the word?
You know what's hard? Roofing in Florida in July. Right?
Perspective. And it's all relative. Yeah. So like, it just depends. If I told you do 20 million, is there any world where you're going to think that's hard?
No.
And is that an amazing, situation for most people?
To that, absolutely. But I think it's also positioning, like coming at it from a position of gratitude helps frame everything I do. Because even when it's rough, I know how lucky I am to be here, and right now what I'm doing is different than what I was doing in the beginning. With my previous institution, we really liked having collateral, right? So that was something that was not the case anymore. However, at that time, people say it's the box, it's this, it's that. I did $44 million in that box, yeah. Right? So like I've got
this is insane.
Yeah,
which is why you're going to do 180 million this year.
I think Mark is cheering for that. I'm going to try my best.
Dude, no, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And so
I want to get into that. But before I do, talk about these podcasts we're doing.
Yeah.
Because you're on the video show. We do.
Right.
How do you like sort of view these different shows we're doing?
I think they're cool because they kind of address different things, right? The BDO show, I still get good feedback from it, but I will share, like, sometimes I feel challenged to like come up with like new things to talk about, you know? And I almost feel like by design, we have to kind of revisit some of the stuff we've done. So bringing in the guests, I think, is like a cool.
Well, can I ask you a
stuff.
question? Because you haven't been on any of the episodes lately. Are you quitting the show?
Well, I was looking into doing a spin-off opportunity, but I think really it's more of a bandwidth thing. I'm always going to be, you know, part of the BDO show, certainly, especially when we get to travel and do live panels.
Do you think it's time to switch out some of the hosts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm always going to be an advocate and associated with the show. I'm really proud of what we've done, and the feedback I get in my LinkedIn box from people just coming into it is still incredibly positive. I like the comments that say things like, I love Alan's one-liners. All that stuff makes me feel good, obviously, right?
But I like your new one. What's your new one? It's like, it's a quick rhyme.
It's, if you're not being objective, you can't be effective.
I like that one.
You know? Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, I think that we should definitely consider, you know, as I'm stepping back, maybe there's other individuals that have a good perspective.
All right. So if you want to see someone on the BDO show, a new co-host, drop it in the comments. And we're gonna be on a search for the next co-host of the BDO show.
I think that's a great idea, and this is a great way to announce that. But did I just get kicked off my own thing?
Well, we're gonna add. We'll talk about subtraction later.
Fair enough.
All right. So, how do you view this show? How would you compare this show? Because you're on this show,
right?
The BDO show is different. Like, how do you kind of characterize?
I think this show is different, and I think obviously they're all different. And let's not forget, you know, SBA Today. I actually got to meet Paul and Tanya in person.
They love that.
Yeah, we had so much fun. They're super cool people, and I was surprised that they met each other in person for the first time.
And I met Tanya for the first time.
Really? I was like, I couldn't believe it. Tanya, I think she had shared that. She's like, it's the first time I met Paul. I'm like, wow, because they've got a good like on-screen kind of dynamic.
I know. They were my first 2 calls I made.
Yeah,
it was crazy. This was like I was just talking about this because back in October 2023, and I think I was on the car ride to the Murphy conference in Clearwater,
right?
And I was talking to, I think, one of them there, and I was talking to like you maybe because it was that month I created SBA Today, BDO show.
You pitched me and Hackney on the BDO show at Murphy while me and Ryan Collins were setting up our booths. You go, I got something to talk to you about. That is the trip.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I created the content store that month as well.
Yeah.
That was a busy month.
Dude, I mean, yeah, for sure. And you know, the flagship is always
this is the flagship.
This flagship, man. It's different.
It's professional. In fact, I was talking to someone who used to work for SBA fairly high up, and I just sent a quick message.
Yeah.
And the response was basically that they have seen the show, they watched the show, and they offered some commentary on the show. Not going to say if it was positive or negative, but it's cool to be putting out this content to everyone and just seeing the response. Like even showing up at this conference, it's like, you know, you've got fans.
Yeah, there's me and Chris were having a little bit of fun at the mixer that Rapid Business Plans and LCG Advisors put on. And there was a gentleman there that's like, hey man, I love your stuff. And me and Hackney like, that, because we forget. It's kind of just something that we're doing. And me and Chris were like, wow, that was, and then we're like, oh, thanks. Thanks for the kind words, kind of thing. And me and Chris internally were like, whoa, that's kind of neat, So that feels good for sure.
Yeah. Welcome to what I've been feeling since I started this 5 years ago. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
This is like the only place in the world where that happens.
Right.
You don't go to like Publix and people are like, hey.
No, they don't. Yeah.
No,
exactly.
We've got hundreds and hundreds of views.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So let's get into why people are here, which is how you're pulling this off, because you can give me the trajectory of like the years of production you did, like I said earlier, I did like 6 million, then 10 million, then 15, then 40. Like, how did it go for you?
So my first 12 months, I did $30 million. So, I've never done under 30, so
that's the baseline for you.
Yeah.
Which is what probably 90% have never even touched.
Yeah. And that was like,
that's crazy.
That's what people say, but I'm just kind of doing what I love. And I know that might sound cheesy, but this is a blast. This is the coolest thing in the entire world. Like the people that I've met through this, not only my friends that do what we do, not like us, not our vendor friends, not, you know, new BDO friends that I've made from Texas, like my borrowers, the brokers, the characters.
Right. And you're like a valuable person in the community of this sort of situation, right at ground zero of the silver tsunami, Alan. You only do
that's trademarked. That's trademarked. TM Eric.
But seriously, he'll call you out, and he's a lawyer.
Yeah.
So TM, put it in the show notes. But I'm really interested in kind of where you are right now, because you said you're self-sourcing 85%. So of your business, which is like the flip opposite reverse of.
Well, that's my value add, right? So because I'm not broker driven, the problem is if you are a bank representative that's working with a high volume broker, I really believe that presents a potential conflict, because if you
work for them now,
you work for them. And if you annoy them and they make up 40% of your production or whatever, then they go away, you're screwed.
That's why I went into content. I wanted to be able to get directly to these people.
Exactly. And that's what I've been able to do with that and word of mouth and just different things. And what that does, and I know I used the tagline earlier, but being objective is like the most important thing that I'm doing, because now I'm coming in, I'm reviewing, you know, documents pre-LOI. I'm helping them structure what we can do, what we can't do. I'm introducing them to good M&A attorneys. I'm introducing them to good quality of earnings providers. I'm introducing them to good commercial insurance providers, my life insurance friends. All of that, I round out the deal team. When you have
connect and protect.
That's a good one.
Just thought of that.
That's a really good one, actually. But it's like at that point, you're a trusted advisor. And I explained to them, you know, I can't let you do a bad deal. There's one thing about buying a business. There's another thing about buying a business and being able to sleep while you own it.
I just saw that the other day. Someone's trying to buy a business. So literally like tariff news drops.
Right.
They're buying a business that imports from
China.
And I'm like, so what are we doing here?
Right.
And they're, you know, these people get on a call. I'll pull up, we get these messages all the time. It's like probably cut and paste. They send it to you too.
Yeah.
And so people want to come. They're like, hey, I'm about to go under LOI, or I'm under LOI.
Yeah.
Can I run this deal? Can I get your thoughts on this deal? Can I pick your brain on this deal? Whatever. So you get on and they are pitching the deal to you because they are trying to secure their lending.
Right.
But in the back of their mind, they always have doubts and concerns, and this deal might not even go through, right? We still have to go through all due diligence. We've got to get a QV. We've got to go through the purchase agreement negotiations. But with something like as powerful as tariffs, like I was like, there's no, like, how could we possibly do this deal? You know what I mean? Like, how can you pass on 100% tariff on a discretionary product to a consumer?
Right.
You're going to get crushed. And then finally, after I go to them multiple times, they admit, yeah, you're probably right. This deal sucks.
Well, I had an individual that was similar, Ray, in that they were looking at a deal that was one good year of cash flow, you know, and essentially it just, I had to talk to them very transparently, you know, and I'm like, dude, you've got a killer W-2. You got a good quality of life, okay? You're going to give me an unconditional government guarantee on one good year? What is the point of that? And I understand wanting to do a deal. I understand that deal fatigue is real, but you cannot let entrepreneurial optimism cloud your better judgment. You know, you're obviously a sophisticated buyer. Your resume, your PFS, your interactions show me that you are a capable person that has real experience in managing people, in managing budgets, in managing operations in some meaningful capacity. But at the end of the day, I'd rather you search for 13 months and close on the right deal than close month 12 because you're getting burnt out. And the same is true. You see this happen where here's my investment thesis. I love home services because it's popular and it's Bezos proof for now. then as time goes on, we look at deals, oh, I lost this one looks good. Oh, upon due diligence, this stinks. Oh, it's really seller reliant. Good, I'm glad you're catching these things. It's better to catch it than not, But then as it goes, you start getting, hey, here's 5 listings from Biz Buy Sell that aren't the same geographically, industry-wise. And it's like, we need to reel them back in. And that is the point of being objective, right? That's what makes me create value, that people aren't saying, well, let me talk to 5 other banks and see what they say. We're already working in their best interest. You know what I mean? And like, I think that is my favorite thing about the current.
Yeah, the current Al.
Al.
So let's go into that. So
old Alan just loves self-storage deals because I needed cash flow in buildings, and I found a lot of them. Thank goodness.
Before we get into the episode, I want to tell you a quick story. I was at the BDO retreat earlier this year, sitting next to Dustin Baker and one of the Shatterbox learners that he had recruited into the SBA industry. Her name is Sarah. And Sarah told me that she closed $10 million in her first 6 months as a BDO. I look over at Dustin and I asked him, why would anyone hire an $8 to $12 million producer anymore? Sarah is one of many Shatterbox learners who has proven that you can take a smart young person with no SBA experience, teach them SBA, and in many cases, they will outproduce seasoned BDOs right out of the gate. Why are we so willing to hire a mediocre BDO with a 6-figure salary when you can hire your next rock star, someone with unlimited potential, for half the price? You have no more excuse. Shatterbox has created the best learning platform ever created for the SBA lending industry. Join the 20-plus Shatterbox clients who have already taken the plunge on building talent from the ground up. I'm going to leave a link down below just for Art of SBA listeners. So if you want to learn how Shatterbox can help you hire and invest in bright young talent without breaking the bank, reach out and set up a discovery call today.
Well, you know what? It's good to say because, people talk about the credit box and how
you need to acknowledge it.
You have to, because it's not everything, but it's a big part of it.
It certainly matters.
Because I was doing mostly real estate secured stuff.
Sure.
And then I went into a place where the box was more collateral neutral.
Right.
And my production tripled.
Oh, yeah. No, listen, focusing on business acquisitions where we are collateral neutral is a good way to put that, where we follow the SOP and as far as secondary collateral, et cetera. However, being able to look at cash flow as the best way to mitigate repayment risk makes sense. And I know I've said it before, but more so than a second lien on your vacation home in Sea Isle City, New Jersey.
Hold on one second.
Yeah.
So I'm going to walk through your upfront process here, because it's like, this is essentially your sales strategy at this point, right? You're not talking about the bank. You're not saying, hey, we're an X billion-dollar bank. And you're not, all you're doing is you're looking at a deal. They're kind of looking at you analyze a deal and providing advice and making a decision based on that to say, hey, yeah, this is the guy I want in my corner because I have been searching for 6, 12, 18 months.
Right.
When that deal finally hits the table, I want to work with someone who's in the trenches with me.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So here, let's walk through it real quick. Cause here's one that somebody reached out to me with something like this. They're probably reaching out to you too. So, like
we do cross each other.
People that it's whether it's this person or not, it's essentially the same thing, but, purchase price, $7 million.
Yep.
Seller note. They're laying it all out. Seller note, here's the terms of the seller note. Here's the DSCR. Here's a mix of residential and construction. And so right away, I know they're talking to Live Oak.
Yeah.
Because they're breaking out how much.
Yeah.
And here's what it does. And here's the license. And I was like, okay, so this person already knows enough to be an SBA lender.
So that means that you're not the first one that they talk to. And I haven't checked my inbox. Is that LinkedIn?
The Twitter.
Okay.
So this is so would this be a good fit for you? And I said, you had me at cash flow, but
yeah,
I didn't say that. But so what's your next step?
So when I make that initial contact and we have somebody that's looking at a deal, I will always push to do a Zoom or similar to figure out. And this is one that, Bruce Marks talked about it, and I've since started doing that. Bruce talks about.
Shout out Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce is great. And, no doubt about it. But he shared when he was on the BDO show that he's saying to the borrowers, what are the most important things to you? Is it speed? Do you need to close in 30 days? Because I'm not your guy, right? Is it you need a super low fixed rate? I'm sorry, that's not going to be me either. Is it execution? Okay, now you are my client, right? Now, if it's certainty of execution, I can provide that. So I use the Zoom meeting to get to know them the best we can virtually, to figure out that fifth C of credit character, and see if I feel good, to be totally transparent with you, of how they're going to fit into this business. I'm going to grab a management summary or a resume and a PFS before we even get on the calendar. So I'm going to request that. And then I'm going to ask, what do we have on the target business today? Are we operating off business tax returns? Please send them my way. If we're operating on P&Ls because they won't release the tax returns until we're under LOI, fine. But just acknowledge we're on a trust and verify basis. And if the tax returns aren't telling this story, then we might have some problems, and manage their expectations that way. Once we have that call and we determine that, yeah, it makes sense for us to work together, I'm managing their expectations all the way up front. Because I'm not beholden to broker relationships, that allows me to control the tempo, the process, the expectations. It allows me to work with my internal team. I have an open door policy with my chief credit officer and the credit manager below him. They're both great guys that answer the phone when I call, or they call me back. So if there's anything that I'm unsure of, I can say, I look at it this way. Would you agree? I can provide that certainty of execution because I'm already vetting the importance of, I know the rest of it. You know, I know I've got historic cash flow. I have post-close liquidity. I have experience. What else do we really need to figure out, right? So then it's like the story, the moving parts. If there's challenges, I know that I can talk to the signing authority directly, right? And then when that deal comes to underwriting, and it gets the credit memorandum is complete, that riveting 30-something page document of raw data and
book report.
Shout outs to the underwriters, because I would not want that job, right? But then when that hits the desk, there's already a certain familiarity. Oh, that's that deal. I talked to Alan about this. The reason we were looking at it this way is because we talked about that, and we make sure that it looks good. And it's that value that I'm creating. I'm not getting pushed by a broker that goes, pay me 2 points and close in 45 days, or I'm going to call you like an ex-girlfriend. That's not my world anymore. So
you're free.
I'm free. And with my production, I don't have to do every deal. So that's something that's valuable too. I had a guy that said that to me. He goes, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't? He's like, so you won't do this deal? Well, I'm going to go over there and they'll do it. I go, well, that's awesome, man. Like, if this is something you believe in.
Well, how'd you get your volume up to the point where you could be that more choosy?
Working kind of hard. I mean, I think a lot of it is also, some of the strategies that I'm using is just getting in front of people in different ways, right? Trying to lean in to fish where the fish are, so to speak. And that, for me, at this stage of my career, is not necessarily broker conferences. The brokers I have, shout outs to my brokers. If they're seeing this, like, Alan doesn't like it. No, that's not true. I have like 4 or 5 brokers that I still work with, and they're really good. And they appreciate my openness and honesty, But I'm not like blasting every business broker in the big 4 the way I would have been early in my career. And I think part of it is people close loans, doing this for a couple of years now. It's like friends of friends, different connections. People think of me in different ways, and it starts to snowball.
You picked a niche, so the snowball builds quicker.
Yeah, exactly.
And business acquisition's your niche. So, and that could be anything. That could be an industry. It could be a referral type.
Yeah.
For like a broker type.
Yeah.
It could be a use of proceeds type. It could be a geography. Maybe I only lend in 2 counties. Right. Like Kevin Rafferty. Right. He's mostly in Broward and Palm Beach.
Shout out to Kevin Rafferty. I love Kevin.
And they crush. And it's like, okay, so if you have a small enough market that you want to go after, you can permeate it quicker.
Exactly. And like, even with the use of proceeds, I remember we talked about this, and I don't know if we recorded it, if it was like I don't remember what it was, but we had a conversation where it was at the BDO retreat when we were sharing trade secrets. This was the 2nd year, and we were talking about niching down, right? And you said something that was kind of compelling. You said, if you're going to commit a niche down, then you need to pass on an easy cash flowing opportunity that's not within what you've determined is all you're going to do. So if I get a lay down working capital deal, I'm not doing them. I'm referring them to my friends who think of me on the other way. And it's because It's just, it's not
So
not what I do.
we do that. We've been successful. Brokers that, or I'm sorry, BDOs that have not reached these levels think that's crazy. Well, turns out they're crazy because I talked to Bruce Marks. I talked to you. Bruce Marks won't touch a real estate deal.
Right.
He won't touch deals under a certain amount. And he does 70.
Bruce has got it figured out, man.
Dude, and it's so funny because everyone has to go through their own journey. So like when I met Bruce and he was at Radius Bank or something like that, and he was kind of just getting into this, I could tell he was enlightened.
Yeah.
Because he was a $15 or so million producer for 20 years.
Right.
And now he does 75, 100,
Right.
right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So he was talking to me about all this stuff, and I was just like in my own zone. So he talks, and it kind of goes one ear out the other to a certain extent. And then years and years later, I arrive at the point that's like, I want to be Bruce Marks.
Right. It's not.
He's figured it out. He's told the market what he does.
Yeah.
And it's like us, and it's like on the shows.
Yeah.
We tell people exactly what to do.
Yeah.
But if you don't do it, I can't help you.
Right. And it's like, you got to think of it as well as marketing is not a billboard in today's day and age. And I'm not talking about the literal billboard. I'm saying you cannot just put your feelers out there once. You have to think of the potential partnerships, whether they're direct borrowers, whether they are brokers, and, you know, whomever it may be. You need to think of it as a parade that's passing, and you need to keep holding that sign up as the people. And if you don't, you're going to miss it. I was talking,
Really great analogy.
Yeah.
I heard that earlier.
Yeah. And I stole that from somebody on Twitter or something. So shout out to whomever it was. But, you know, it's like, it's something that is important to remember, is that you need to be out there in this day and age, regardless of what that is. If what being out there looks like for you, your bank's policy, for example, a hyper local lender, if getting out there literally means hosting happy hours, going to breakfast, doing classic old school COI stuff, then you better go and do that, you know? But yeah, that's a really interesting thing. And, you know, I always talk about pass on paper. You know, people are like, how do you grow? By saying no more often and saying it quicker. That includes cash flowing deals that would certainly get done that are not within the scope of what I do. I only want to talk about deals that have purchase agreements, right? Like that's it for me at this point, which is exciting.
That's very cool. So, all right. So folks are coming to you. They're giving you some upfront info. You're getting on a call with them. You're beating up the deal.
Beating it up.
You're not selling and saying, hey, I can get this done and blah, blah, blah. You're actually doing the opposite.
No, because I'm not transactional. Okay. I don't need the business. Right. And I'm not going to do a bad deal.
That's the key, what you just said. That's the ultimate unlock, is when you truly don't need the business.
Dude,
all of a sudden you have more business than you can handle.
I've done my first 12 months. I did year to date, and we were in the middle of April. So it's like, and
it's insane.
And a lot of it, and I'm actually
you could take the rest of the year off if you.
I can't, because I've got it. There's something wrong with me, right? I love this too much, man. You know, I really love it, and it's just the best thing. I mean, think of it. This is cheesy. I don't care. When someday, somebody's grandkid, right, is going to be going to a really nice school, you know, and they're going to say, oh, you got an Audi on your 17th birthday, you know? Oh yeah, my grandfather actually owns XYZ company, and, you know, and then he passed on to my dad. My dad grew it, whatever. The grandfather, right, theoretically, the grandfather may have been the person on the other end of that Zoom call 40, 50 years from now. So when they tell that story, when that story is happening in a lake house somewhere, in the whole story, in one paragraph, one punctuation mark is me. And I'm part of that. Think about that.
Goosebumps.
Best job in the world.
I think we got to take a break, man.
One thing that Kevin Bromberg, he's my associate lender. Shout outs to Kevin. He does an amazing job. One thing that he can tell you that he does and I do it. We always beat the deal up and then say, I remain open-minded on this opportunity, to be clear. However, these are the things that I think we should be considering very seriously.
So you just hit a nail on that, and you said it earlier too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where a lot of BDOs get it wrong, and because they're so closed-minded. So like you said earlier, oh, if we don't have the tax returns because the seller doesn't want to hand them over before you have a signed LOI. A lot of BDOs just say, well, I'm not going to look at it then. Or here's the list, call me when you have it. And it's like, okay, yes, you do need them. It is important. But you communicated that it's like, hey, if you want the true answer, I need those tax returns. If we are going to go off the P&Ls and these tax returns are different, feedback's going to be different.
Right.
But we're going to work with what we have. You're sort of meeting the borrower where they are, because they're saying, okay, well, they're not giving me the tax returns. This lender's not giving me an answer.
Right.
What do I do? I probably just go to a new lender.
Sure.
Now that new lender, maybe they say, all right, yeah, I'll give you an answer. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe they don't explain that the tax returns actually are going to be the key at the end. Mm-hmm. So you've just got to strike the right balance about just educating them on what's going on.
It's like I'm open-minded to the P&Ls on a trust and verify, so we can have a conversation about debt service coverage ratio, right? Like, this is what I'm seeing based on this. I'm not going to add back the seller's kids braces, right? This is really what I know I can get done. I know the appetite of my institution very well. I know what we do. I know what we don't do. I can communicate that effectively. I'll meet you halfway there, but what's non-negotiable is I'm going to get your PFS and your management summary and a little bit of a story of why you like the business. And we're going to do a Zoom call. That part is non-negotiable, because I'm not going to go through those motions unless I know we have somebody that is serious.
That's fair.
Yeah. If they can't be bothered to connect with you on Zoom, but they want $3 million, that's a problem.
Oh, 100%. Now, you said something about only 1 year of tax or 1 year of cash flow, or because in SBA, a lot of people do look at 1 year of cash flow plus the interim.
Sure.
So like 2024, 2025 year to date.
Yeah.
There's 1 year of cash flow there.
Yeah.
So
I prefer for my clients to pursue opportunities that have historic cash flow.
And why is that?
Because I want the performance of the business to be as consistent and predictable as possible to mitigate future risk. I think that if we've got one good year and miraculously the seller's ready to jump out of there, don't get me wrong, I'm going to look at those opportunities. I'm not saying that we're 100% out, but if debt service is like 0.7, 0.8, 1.9, right, and the P&L is off the charts. I mean, Alan Peterson LLC just posted our biggest win yet. Who cares about it, right? You know what I mean? They're like projections.
So do you think it would be easy to, if I had a business and your business never made money, and I want to sell it in the year, do you think it would be possible to basically pull some levers to just make the appearance of one good year and then just get out?
I think it's possible, and I think it happens. For me, it's not that I'm like it's not I'm so risk adverse that I'm not willing to hear the whole story. I mean, there's also things that we have to consider, Ray. If I've got a real operator that's already in the industry, that's different. You know what I mean? Like, if I have somebody,
right.
I'm going to look at that way differently, because the profile is different. The risk is different. When I have an MBA in a quarter zip with their MBA under their arm, walk into the break room with 15 blue collar employees that built the business that they just bought with one good year of cash flow, that's not my deal. That's not my borrower.
In closing, let's talk about closing.
Okay.
Because closing is obviously, it's where the rubber meets the road. It's the most emotional part, especially as you're getting towards that closing time frame. And once they sign the purchase agreement, which tends to be, sometimes they want to do that the week before they think they're going to close, or 2 weeks before. Right. And it's like, oh wait, no, we still have all this stuff here. And it's like, oh, they think we're just going to close, and you got all these different parties, and then you've got paperwork shuffling all over the place. And I've yet to see a perfect solve for closing firsthand, but we do a pretty good job where I'm at. Yeah. But I've seen it just turn into other like chaos.
Is it Shalise?
Shalise is the GOAT.
I've never even met her, but I know about
Shalise. Is the whole closing team was the Fundex closing team.
Yeah.
And we had good closers, and we have good closers here because it's the same team. But It's still, and they do amazing. And honestly, it's miraculous, but we get hammered in closing. If it's not one thing, it's the other.
Sure.
It's out of your control. It's all this
attorney is.
I mean, or you use your brother-in-law for life insurance.
The brother-in-law for life insurance. Yeah, it's yeah.
How do you set the stage for closing when you're educating like a first-time buyer?
Well, when it all starts from the very beginning, right? Because what I like to do, and it's a best practice, I think most of us do it at this point, is parallel processing pre-closing requirements as much as possible and appropriate for that stage of the game.
Entity docs, life insurance, business insurances.
You get that all in them. Yeah, exactly.
Start working on the stuff you know you're going to need it.
Just do it. Because the other thing, the benefit is while we're waiting for the credit memo to get completed, this also keeps them engaged.
Right.
And
you don't want to be sitting on your hands.
No, because it's like the late Tom Petty said, the waiting is the hardest part. And keeping people engaged keeps them, on task, because it's challenging, and when we get those items together on the pre-close checklist, it's also nice when I can communicate to my closer, and we've got a great closing department as well. I can say, hey, just so you know, we have these items in here. And Olivia on my team, she handles all that. She does a killer job. So she'll communicate like, hey, just so you know, like these are some things we should get ahead of. These are, this is the language that needs to be for insurances. This is our official mailing address for, et cetera. And it kind of like solves a lot of those problems. So for closing, when I get the commitment letter, they've already been working on it. Hey, for me to formally engage legal in the closing, I need this executed. It will be sent via DocuSign for ease of execution. And we need to process our deposit in most cases, right? Our closing deposit, our commitment letter will call for the final, another, deposit for due diligence, et cetera. And I'll let them know right away that we do have a clear to close process that's internally. And I explain to them,
setting expectations.
It's all got to be in. It's got to be reviewed by my closer, who's very capable and very experienced. It needs to be reviewed by management to make sure we're good. It needs to be reviewed by legal, the things that are applicable there. Everybody's got to agree. So first things first, it's all got to come in. Then we need to make sure that it's all right, because we don't want to get into a situation where we're rushing closings and doing them the wrong way. And I had this conversation on the balcony earlier today after the session. I caught up to try to get caught up on some email. Wi-Fi was giving me challenges, but I checked in with the team or whatever. And I let the borrower know. And I said, listen, man, you've been doing a great job. If you get us everything we need from closing in, I promise you that it's our goal to get this wrapped up for you as quick as possible. We want it off the desk too. We're a volume shop. However, under no circumstance will we be holding a gun to anybody's head and say, we need to close now. That's not going to happen for any reason. And he was like, oh, no, I would never. I go, I know you wouldn't, but I need to make it very clear that will not happen.
So, all right, I want to really unpack that because that's incredible. So first of all, we've done deals together when I was a broker, not when I was bank side.
I know. I can't take your paper anymore.
But you do a really good job of making the borrower believe, and because it's true,
right,
that you have their back.
Right.
But then you also do a really great job of making your internal team feel comfortable. And it's so extreme. There's almost like there's two of you.
Right.
And it kind of is like, I'm not saying that like negative, like
sure.
You have to do that.
Yeah.
And what you just said with the gun to the head, it's such a great visual.
Right.
Because you have to repeat these things a lot with first-time borrowers so that they really understand. Because when they get to the end, they give them the last document, they're exhausted. They're like, can we close tomorrow? And you can't say, well, I told you 5 times that we have this other process, the pre-close review. But when you make it very clear like you did, that's a visual that I feel like they'll probably remember better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the client, he's awesome. He's like I said, he was kind of taken aback. And I go, no, I just want to make sure we're having this conversation because that's not the way it's going to go down. And what I found is like, as far as like the two different people in the two different roles, I would say it's actually closer related than we think, because then it's like, I've got the borrower's back. The bank has my back. I've got the bank's back. And until you pay us back, back, until you pay the loan off, it's our problem, right? So it's like we all are on the same page. And I think when I can communicate that, it's not like, internal team and customer, Alan, and internal team. I talk the same way to everybody all the time, for better or for worse. it is what it is. And
that's true. Yeah, that's a good clarification.
Yeah, but I see where you're coming from, though. Absolutely. But I'm not like, all right, we gotta, like whatever, and then internally like.
Well, what I mean is more like you're the same in both sides. Yeah. But it's like, well, you're empathizing. It's really about empathizing with the borrower and empathizing with your internal, or just getting them all on the same page with you, because they and not pushing things through is, I guess, what I'm trying to say, because what I've seen so many times, and it's you're shooting yourself in your foot. Oh. You're focused on the deal, not your career.
Right.
Long term, it hurts you more than it helps, because you want to. Common example, and I want you to tell me what you would do, and be honest.
Yeah, I will.
Hey, we need everything by Friday to get to close next Friday on the date you want to close by. Okay, Friday comes around, we miss it. Tuesday, we get the stuff we need.
Yeah.
Hey, closers, I know we said Friday. Can we still close?
I don't
on Friday.
Yeah.
Or do we go to the borrower and say, well, we said we need this, and so
I'm calling the borrower on Saturday, and if I can get it in, if I can get it in over the weekend, Tuesday's too far, I think, in my view. But it's that part is a delicate dance, and I don't want to be, misrepresenting that I don't love getting the deal done and funded, and and all that. But when you manage the expectations and you communicate effectively, they know they had to have it in by Friday, and they know that it's Tuesday.
Right.
So at that point, I'm not gonna fire drill. I'm just not gonna do it. I love my team. Like, we're like friends. Like, I'm not doing that to.
So my the brokers that they push me hard a lot, and so I've worked with some of my brokers for 10 plus years. I've worked with my team now for 3-4 years.
Right.
And it's the same thing every single time. He sends the last document. He then calls me and says, hey, I need you to push this through. We need to get this closed, this week, whatever. Forward in, it's Monday. We want to close Friday. And I say, let me see what I can do. And I do nothing.
Yeah.
And my team gets it done anyway.
Right.
It's not because I push anything. It's because we're all rallying around the same thing. I don't need to push anyone.
Right.
Because I'm aligned with people that we're all like-minded.
Exactly.
So 9 times out of 10, when my brokers tell me to do something, I don't, because I know my team's already got it. And I don't want to annoy them to think I'm like,
I called my closer on that same deal that I talked about before. And when I hung up with the borrower, I called my closer and I go, hey, I just want to let you know, I just talked to the client, and she said, hey, listen, I know you're at the conference. If you're all right with it, I'm just going to shoot the checklist, get their availability for the kickoff call to schedule. I'll use Schedule Assistant, make sure you're free. I'll get it on your calendar. We'll get the borrower in there, and let's start communicating these things. And I know that you're going to be on a water slide at Margaritaville in Houston with any luck at 7 p.m. Are you cool if I do that? Am I cool if you do that? Absolutely.
Exactly.
And that's, to your point, man, that's what it's all about. But you keep those relationships healthy and intact. You can retain that great level of talent by simply not being a jerk, and I've seen a lot of bull in the China shop scenarios. I've certainly have witnessed at my last bank, we had credit committee, and you'd see these guys like really just jamming, and I don't know, man, like, there's just too much action out there to have to cram every single deal that everybody's throwing. There's just too much action out there.
Yeah. It's the most I'll push is, hey, if whatever you can do, it's like, if you can do it, I mean, go for it. That's what they want. But like, I've set this expectation, but like, they would just be super happy if you can somehow pull a rabbit out of your hat. But if you come to them every week with that too, it's still,
no, exactly.
It's like once every 6 months. And it's interesting that we have to sort of not tiptoe, but like, we have to really care about, because it's so easy for these closers particularly to get overworked.
Oh yeah.
And if you work with the good ones, they will overwork. They will work weekends. Yeah. Lisa's a Sunday night prepper.
Right.
If she's got a closing that week, she's Sunday night, and no one asked her to do that.
Right.
But you've got to make sure that, just from a sustainability perspective, like, they are not overworked, and you don't really, I guess, have too much control as a BDO.
Right.
Because it's like, how many deals is management trying to expect out of him, whatnot. But as long as you are just super solid with your relationship with the closers, it's like one of the secret weapons as a BDO.
Yeah, no, it really is. I do, with my group, I'm really fortunate that I do have like a pod setup. So every Monday at 10 a.m., I review everything with my support staff and my closers. So we talk about deals coming through credit. Hey, listen, I talked to the signing authority. He's good. He's good. We're just working out some other things in the CAT. If you have the bandwidth, we do have some items that are already collected. Just to let you know, this one's going to be hitting your stage soon. And they like that too, because they like knowing what's going on. And if you don't explain the deal well enough, then it's just a transaction. If you personalize it as well, like, hey, I've got this deal. It's a sharp young guy. He's coming into this thing. He's a really great guy. He's out of North Carolina. He just had another kid. Oh, that's great. Like, make it the story of the full picture. I've noticed that also motivates teams to want to help
100%.
more.
And the pods really go a long way with that, because you can then bring them in earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And I find if you're in it from the beginning, you're carrying that on your shoulders, right? That's why the BDOs care so much.
Yeah.
But when you are an underwriter being assigned random deals,
right?
Who cares?
Who cares?
I got this deal, I've got that deal, and then I've got to do that deal. That's all I know is all I care about.
For 6 different people that all do different levels of preparation, submit summaries at different varying levels of detail.
Yeah.
There's no consistency.
And I hate when they say raise deal. It's not my deal. Every shop it's like that. This is Ray's deal. No, it's not my deal. Yes, I'm the BDO on the deal, but it's the borrower's deal.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have a responsibility to that borrower.
Right.
You have to personalize these loans, because we talk about it. You got to talk about it more.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. And what's nice with the pod thing as well is as it relates to closing specifically, think about it. Every Monday we talk about XYZ Co. Hey, how's the checklist items? Do we have everything we need to get into credit for XYZ business, right? And the closer hears it throughout the way. And then they might even say, Alan, what's going on with XYZ Co? Are we looking good there? And then
it's on their radar now. So how's the pods been working for you?
It's been fantastic.
You're fairly new to pods, right?
Yeah, it's been a real game changer for us. I absolutely love it because I can get closer with my people, and we're all rowing in the same direction. So
I hope to get back there one day.
Yeah, due time, right? Everything changes, and right now, I'm just really lucky to be working with the people I am. I mean that sincerely. I do what I love to do with people that I really like doing it with. And
you're at the internet,
dude. It's sick. It's really good. It's really it's a really great chapter right now, and I'm grateful to be where I am right now.
Well, that's great. It's really awesome to be here with the #1 BDO from First Internet Bank.
I don't know if I'm going that far.
Thank you for joining me, Alan. Until next time, ta-ta.
All right, that's it for this week's episode. If you want more SBA content, you can sign up for our monthly newsletter and check out our sister shows, SBA Today and The BDO Show. We'll leave a link in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode of The Art of SBA Lending. Ta-ta.